Thank you for joining us here on Breakfast Central. Let's take you through the papers and see what they're saying. And joining us for this, we have Public Affairs Analyst Adebowale Jeff Johnson. Good morning and thank you for joining us.
Good morning and thank you for having me.
All right, let's begin with this Nigeria newspaper. On the front page of this Nigeria, we raided Dangote Group in Lagos over $3.4 billion forex deals. Over 50 other organizations risk similar action, EFCC sources. Company keeps mum. Pro-Fubara ex-lawmaker Ehie withdraws suit against 25 Rivers legislators. Plateau gubernatorial tussle, appeal court unfair to me, Mufwang tells Supreme Court. No plans to increase price of PMS, Ipman insists, warns against panic buying. CSOs volunteer to monitor, evaluate implementation of 28.78 trillion naira 2024 expenditure, warns that era of stealing taxpayers' money is over. No room for abandoned projects in FCT, says Wiki. Contractors are sure on May 29 delivery. I think we'll begin with the story of the raid, the big story, the raid of the Dangote Group in Lagos. Over $3.4 billion, I beg your pardon, forex deals. Now, while we can't say categorically that we know exactly what the situation is, but of course there are and have been speculations of certain organizations getting forex from CBN at much cheaper rates than others. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. Okay,
so I think that we should not overthink this because it's expected. Well, all through the most part of late last year, there were issues again, former governor of the central bank and the conversation around some sort of, forex racketeering. So yes, it's going to definitely happen. I have expected it. It's coming, well, and it's going to still happen. I'm particularly interested in the list of all the other companies that are to be raided for this. I said this, and I think on another platform last year after the election, that whoever is the president needs to audit the public sector. And in auditing the public sector, you need to audit all the agencies of government. And so it's important that he had to come, and we need to ask the questions around what has happened in this particular space.
Yeah, I agree with auditing, every MDA across the country, because I feel like Nigeria is some people would describe it as a huge crime scene where monies just keep disappearing. And it's been like that. It's been a system for decades now, and everybody just goes with the flow, Every single MDA has its own auditing department inside that doesn't work. They're all part of the scheme. They're all part of, whatever crimes that have been committed. But is it maybe also a good time to look at, the possible or alleged financial crimes that Godwin Emefiele committed while he was in office? These things were allegations. There were rumors, on the time that he was there. But, how worrisome will it be if these things are true, that he gave out billions of dollars to different companies across the country at a lower rate than was allowed?
So I think that this is like an octopus. It has multiple legs. There's the issue in CBN in itself, and if that is the national bank, as the case is, you will definitely see that no money, in all the agencies, there's no way. If you really want to track financial crimes, CBN is the best place to go to. Then if you now begin to see that even the CBN itself, the main vault itself, has some sort of issues, you need to audit it, and it happened. And so we're definitely going to see a lot more as the year goes by. And so it is important that as CBN is being audited and issues are being clarified, because again, like you said, the allegations. So it's clarity we need to seek for as those audit report comes out and they're being presented to the authorities that should be looking at them. And from there we now begin to see, okay, were there issues, whether in management of funds within CBN or in the course of the audit, we see some financial transactions that we need to clarify in the MDAs and around the countries on other things. So it doesn't have to be forex alone. It might just also be some sort, like you said, every organization have their internal audit. But when the audit system itself is part of the crime, you need an external audit system to come in, an external auditor to come in and really find out, what has been going on.
All right, let's look at the front page and see what's going on with Ipman. No plans to increase price of PMS, Ipman insists, warns against panic buying. Yesterday and the day before, news hit the newspapers that there was a potential that marketers would then peg the price of fuel at 1,200 naira to a litre, which would be very ridiculous. They've come out now to tell us, NNPC has told us that there's no, NNPC has said there will be no price increase. Now we're hearing that Ipman says there will be no price increase, even though yesterday on the show we had the Ipman spokesperson joining us to tell us of the potential of fuel getting to 2,000 naira to the litre. What is this drama that is going on?
Nigerians are the problem of Nigeria. It's not just our leaders or our political class. I believe each and every one of us must take responsibility. It's the bitter truth. Everybody wants to exploit everybody. And it's just sad that we must tell ourselves this truth. I sat with someone, I think somewhere in Calabar last year, and he says, even at the price that we're trying to sell fuel, it should actually be cheaper. That, he doesn't understand why the price was at the time what it was, at about 200 and something. Now we're talking, 630 thereabout, and we're still saying we're going 1,200, 2,000 naira. The question really is, are we trying as marketers to just make profit just because of a lifestyle we want to keep? Or we really want to look inward and sit down and engage government as much as we engage citizens on what is the reality of our consumption and how we can get out of this conundrum? I think we're just all playing ostrich, everybody burying their heads in the sand.
Yeah. All right. Let's move forward to another newspaper. I think the Guardian news. Yes. All right. It says there, EFCC probes NSIPA beneficiaries and alleged forex allocation abuse. The drama continues. It almost feels like the same way it is when every new government comes into office. There's some EFCC,
initial gra-gra.
Yes, in Nigerian terms, initial gra-gra. They're chasing people here and there. In a couple of months, it almost feels like all of that just dies down and we move on. But let's hope that this one bears some fruit. But, like I would always argue, this is not the way corruption is fought. Corruption is fought with systems, not by chasing people up and down. It's not after they finish stealing billions, then you chase them and then, eventually they still don't go to jail, but you embarrass them a little bit. That's not the way to fight corruption, but we'll see. My election nullified without basis. Plateau State Governor cries out to Supreme Court. I hope that he remembers that he has people to protect. 160 of them just died before Christmas.
Exactly. That was my first reaction when I saw that.
Fubara's ally withdraws suit against 25 Rivers lawmakers. Also, Naira battles fresh threat, falls below 1,200 Naira at the parallel market. Manufacturers Association of Nigeria predicts challenging business year, urges federal government to prioritize manufacturing. Create economic management team. NES tells Tinubu, I think we will talk about that. And the group blames Mossad for underdevelopment in Ogoni. Navy decries reports on complicity in oil theft. All right, so quickly, let's talk about creating an economic management team. The Buhari administration had it. It was even, of course, filled with people as popular as current Governor Soludo and a few other people. But it didn't seem to move our economic indices, any further. So let's quickly get your thoughts on that one. And of course, also, maybe also stop by in Plateau State and see what the governor over there is doing.
Okay, so on this economic group, I think what we should be looking at is not to, again, create some sort of, I don't know how to put it, some sort of group of people again, and then we'll be looking at, overhead cost, because they're going to travel, they're going to have to stay in some sort of accommodation whenever they need to meet, and they will have sitting allowances and stuff. I think what we need to do is to look inwards and really tax those who are already engaged. The likes of Cardoso or the economic minister and finance minister and all those guys are great minds, and we can talk about the Nigerian Economic Summit Group that yearly, as an independent organization, and a lot of volunteers of the private sector sit down to do proper research and they make recommendations to government. I think we should just adopt some of those strategies for now until we're able to bring the Nigerian economy back to life before we start bringing more people in and creating, conversations that will continue to cost us more money, that will be draining the pocket. If you then talk about Plateau State, like I said just earlier, I think we Nigerians are the problem of Nigeria. I have, and just last year, I'd sent proposals to as many government, governors in the state and government agencies that security is one of the key things that we need to focus on. And there are ways we can at least reduce the burden, on solving this problem. But a lot of the times, these guys, are distracted because practically all the governors were at the tribunals, or practically all the elections were decided at the tribunals. So if the man is being distracted because he really wants to remain in power, I think it's just the same problem that we have in Nigeria, let me not say in Africa. We just want to sit on power. I think he should have done the honorable thing by saying, hey, I don't think that I'm capable of handling the state and securing the lives of people who had voted for me. And best thing is I should resign and let somebody else come in. Maybe that will begin to change the narrative, but no. We always like to sit there, and even if we're clueless about what we need to do, we just keep rambling and keep hoping that something will give. But it's not going to happen if you cannot, and it's not, since this government started, it's been more than once that communities were being attacked. So I think we need to do better as people and have humanity in our heart and step down from offices if we know we don't have the capacity to solve the problem.
Well, there might be people who would argue that, it's not necessarily, his fault. And that whichever governor, whoever it is that the court declared was winner, would still have been there while these people were slaughtered. It wouldn't have changed anything. So it maybe now takes us back to the federal government to understand, how they have also failed the people of Plateau State. And I said it yesterday that, as of this morning, I don't think anybody in the whole of the Middle Belt region or in the north feels safer with the steps that President Tinubu has taken post that very, very terrible, incident.
Has he even gone to visit the people of Plateau State?
No, he hasn't.
Okay, so this is what I would say. I would say that as much as we have relative peace in Lagos, does not mean that Lagos is safe, in the absolute term. The north, most especially from the Middle Belt, because of maybe what you may want to call ethnic cleansing and land grabbing, it might be the reason why you're seeing this more rampantly. But like I said, if you are in charge of something, if you're a leader, if you're the head of something, and you have an issue, the governor of every state is the chief security officer of the state. Yeah. So if he has had one too many, because for me, one is more than enough, let alone more than one time that you have attacks like that, and well over 200 lives. We're not talking about numbers now, we're talking about lives. Old and young, babies and, people who could have been future leaders or future doctors or whatever. So we need to have humanity more in our heart and then take a decision. And it's not just only about the governor. We also need to talk about all the security architecture in the state and obviously in the country. And people need to take such responsibility and say, hey, if I fail in intelligence, what I presented to them was more on helping with intelligence and first respond. But nobody is willing to even listen. So right. if you're missing out on that, then you should take the responsibility and step back.
All right. Let's step forward now to the next newspaper, the Vanguard newspaper. On the front page of the Vanguard, viral video, uproar over imposters exposed in army recruitment exercise. How is this even possible? It says MBF, PANDEF, Afenifere, KIK, prefer solution. It's a wider agenda to emasculate the North, according to NEF. Recruitment exercise. Osarogie Solo local government boss must be probed. According to General Lanwaju, Osarogie Solo local government chairman Oloyede orders thorough investigation. Lagos will ensure prosecution of suspects. Omotosho vows. Says culprits, I beg your pardon, will be prosecuted. How we arrested fraudulent candidates, according to the army. Forex pressure worsens as manufactured goods imports rise 39% to 3.96 trillion naira. And this is not surprising. Kano demolitions. Victims lament loss of 30 persons and 260 billion naira properties. Mobilization. How undercover reporter breached our system to enroll twice, according to NYSC. 2023 AFCON Super Eagles, 23 others jostle for 8.4 billion naira top prize. At the top of the paper we have NGX Pencom to deepen PFA's equity participation with pension broad index. EFCC ex-minister Farouk cited illness for shunning our invitation. South African Rupert displaces Dangote as Africa's richest person. Plateau appeal court unfair to me, Governor Mutwang tells Supreme Court. I think we should start with Dangote losing his position and dropping to second spot as Africa's richest person with being displaced by South Africans. Is that something to be very worried about? And is it very surprising that all this is happening at the same time with the Dangote group being investigated for forex issues?
No, I think there's nothing so much for us to worry about. In every business circle, when you get to a certain level and your business growth, you would meet some ups and downs, and it's also normal with life. Yes, the Naira has lost value, and just like you read this morning again, it's losing value even a lot more. That would definitely affect his business. Two, it's just starting with the refinery and is importing crude oil. So until it starts to produce and it sells again, before some of those revenues will start to come back in. Three, yes, the investigation would definitely shake him a bit, and he would have to answer. His team and himself will have to answer to the investigation by EFCC. So yes.
Very quickly before we wrap up, I want us to talk about the big story on that paper. The big story talking about Army says opera over imposters exposed in Army recruitment exercise. So there were imposters in the Army recruitment. I don't know if you have a few thoughts. First of all, how could imposters get in?
Okay, so it's very possible in the sense that there's a lot of fraudulent things that go on in the country. So it's possible that the quota that should have gone to most of the states in the South would not be given to them, even if you have people who are willing. But then if you ask how many people, in Lagos, for example, how many Lagosians, so to say, are willing to go into the Army? So when the gap is there and you have a slot of, say for example, 100 and the state, people from the state are only coming maybe 50 of them, they would want to fill up the remaining space. So over the years, it's not something that just happened this year or last year. Over the years, there's been some sort of gap filling. So it has become important for some other people to see it as a racket. You will probably find out that the local government or the state may not necessarily even be aware, but it's also possible that they were actually aware and they issued it. So it's always, give or take around the fact that we see a loophole and we want to fix it and somebody wants to make quick money.
Yeah. All right, Adebowale, Jeff Johnson, thank you very much for stopping by. Of course, a very interesting analysis on these stories. We look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Good morning, Lagos, once again.
All right.